Call to order this meeting of the Piqua City Schools Board of Education for June 22nd, 2021. Mr. Hiddle, roll call.
Mr. Frazier.
Here.
Mr. Ford.
Here.
Mr. Height.
Here.
Mrs. McMacken.
Here.
Mr. Bostic.
Here. If you would, please stand and join us with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Well, we need to approve the minutes from our May 20th board meeting, if I can have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor of approving, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, passes. All right. Board reports, Upper Valley Career Center. Pardon? Oh, yep, skipped our agenda. Got ahead of myself. Okay, need a motion for our agenda for tonight.
So moved. Second.
Okay. All agreeing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Same sign if opposed. Okay, measure passes. Now, Mr. Height, Upper Valley Career Center.
Not much to report because we don't meet until Monday, but if you've been watching the paper, you'll see a lot of our Skills USA teams have done very well with the programs. There's a couple of them that are listed like in the top 24 in the nation, so there's some good things going on even though we're not in session right now.
That was good. And that's is that the group that we, a couple months ago approved or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, they just formed. Well, that's good. That's awesome. Okay, hearing of the public, I have nothing. Mr. Lyons, you haven't?
No.
Okay. Well, moving along. Treasurer's agenda. What I'll do, since we have quite a few things that are going to be voted on, I'd like a motion so we can go down. If there's any questions, we can talk about it, and then we'll just vote at the end. So if I can have a motion? Okay. Second, anybody?
Second.
Okay. All right, Mr. Hiddle?
The May financial reports were attached. Did anybody have any questions about those? The next item on the list tonight is the approval of the FY22 alternate Piqua Public Library budget. They do an alternate tax budget just like we do, except theirs is due in June and ours is due in December. And we just approve that as their governing body, tax authority. And then recommending the board approval for the property and liability insurance for FY22. And to talk about our property and liability insurance, I have Matt Ratterman here tonight to go over that information with you. So I'm going to turn it over to him. I'll give him my new sheets.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Wonderful. So I appreciate your time tonight. I wanted to come over and just talk and let you know what's going on in the property and casualty insurance world, and more specifically, Piqua City Schools. I'm with McCulloch Baker. We're right here next door to you. We've worked with Piqua City Schools for the last 6 years. Last year, we moved the account from Liberty Mutual to the Ohio School Plan, and common in the insurance public school system, every 5 years the companies go out and do appraisals on all the buildings. Obviously, school buildings, construction in those facilities are a little different than our common commercial buildings that we see every day. So the Ohio School Plan went out in December and did an appraisal on all the buildings that were $1 million and above for Piqua City Schools. So what you have in front of you is a record of those appraisals. And as you can see, there's a significant increase in the values. So I attribute that to two factors: the timing of the appraisal and the fact that we are facing unprecedented construction costs right now. So they use a professional company for these appraisals. They believe very firmly in the results that they get from the appraisals, and of course, they want to ensure to those values. So, our renewals with Piqua City Schools have been very favorable. This year, it's a little different. Because of the $22 million that we're looking at in increasing the property values, that's resulted in about a $12,000 increase on the P&C insurance. That's not common. That's not what we see on a normal basis. We have some other school districts within our agency that are with the Ohio School Plan. I've looked back at our results for the last couple of years. Those are normally renewing with about a 2% increase. That's certainly what I would have expected from them this year, minus the increase in the values. So the entire increase, almost the entire increase, is all related to the higher values on the facilities that you have. So the retention in the OSP is very high. They normally renew better than 95% of the schools that are in their program. Unprecedented, I think 3 years ago they renewed 100% of them. So I think you'll see much more favorable renewals moving forward. But this is kind of the world I'm in right now. It's unfortunate coming off last year and COVID. A lot of our businesses are finding new ways to do things, and the insurance companies are pushing rate and they're pushing values on buildings, and that's not a real good combination for clients because renewals are going up. So it's challenging, but I just want you to understand that's kind of the market we're in right now. But I feel like Piqua City Schools is a one-year deal just because that appraisal came through in 2020, and of course they're now asking you to take those values up. So it would be done for another 5-year period. It's on a 5-year rotation. The Ohio School Plan does that. Liberty Mutual does that. So again, very common. So I just kind of want to explain why you're seeing the increase that you are, and I'd be happy to field any questions.
So our expiring premium we paid last year is $98,710,
Correct.
and we are paying what this year?
The renewal is 111,025.
Okay. And then what's the 107,342 is?
They offered, it's an option for the board to consider because of the excessive increase in property values. They would take them up approximately 50% this year and then 50% next year if you chose to do that. The other thing, as I worked with Jeremy on renewal, we looked at some other options too. I know that the facilities down at Wirt Stadium and Roosevelt Fieldhouse are very old. So we looked at taking those off of a replacement cost value and doing them on an actual cash value, meaning we just depreciate the value of those properties. But it didn't make sense. The savings was about $1,000, and you'd be depreciating those properties 50%. So that, to me, is not a good option.
About time you did that, the roof would blow off of it or something, and
Yeah.
the next thing, I mean, that wasn't it. I can just say I've been quiet, let him talk, because I could talk about this a lot. I'm fired up about it. He's heard from me a lot since I saw this late last week. You know, I've done everything I can do to keep these rates low. Since I've been here, I cut it from, where were we at?
I think the first year we worked on it, we were at 280.
So we were under 100,000 for many years, and so it pains me that we will not be under 100,000 this year. I don't agree with a lot of these values that are on here. I can tell you that a rental property is not worth $257,000, but if anybody in Piqua wants to buy it, 922 Broadway, it's a rental property, it's available, and if you want to pay $257 for it, I am willing to sell it to you. So apparently that's what it is. We've talked about how much the field turf costs, and $1.5 million for field turf. It doesn't cost $1.5 million to replace the field turf. We've gotten quotes to do that, and it's nowhere in that ballpark. So some of these numbers are completely out of whack. The question is how much time and energy do you want me to spend wrestling with them to maybe save $200 if we're lucky? Like, we're covered, so if something catastrophic occurs, we're in a better position than we were. So it's not, I don't know that it's really worth trying to tackle this problem. It'll catch itself up anyways, because eventually the turf is going to be worth $1.5 million. But I don't know. That's why he's here to answer questions. I'm frustrated, but we have a June 30 deadline where this ends, and I don't know how to fix it because you can't get an appraisal done that fast to fix the problem. So for this year, I don't know that we have a choice.
So you're saying these, and a question to him, every 5 years they do this, or it's, but what do you foresee it may go up to next year? If we do the 111 now?
I would expect somewhere around 2%.
Okay.
Because that's what we're seeing with our other districts that have been in the OSP. Minus the appraisals this year, that's what Piqua City Schools would have been looking at.
Did a lot of the other schools go up about 12% this year also?
I will find out. We have Sydney City Schools, and they are at their 5th year with the Ohio School Plan, so they are getting appraised this year. So it'll be interesting to see what their appraisal values come back at.
So it's that 5th year when that appraisal hits?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I just
Nope,
wanted to try to
that's
understand so
fine.
everybody.
And Duff and Phelps did our appraisal 5 years ago. So, because part of the question was as well, did the appraisal company screw it up the last time? Well, they did it the last time. So it's hard to say. Like,
Yeah.
But you only get reappraised every 5 years, so we couldn't get reappraised next year.
We could certainly go back to the Ohio School Plan and request that, either later this fall or potentially early next year before the renewal.
Who would foot the bill for that?
I'll have to see, because right now that's one of the things that the insurance companies, whether it's Ohio School Plan or Liberty Mutual, they pay for the appraisals. So if we ask for one interim, I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Height.
Could you find out and let us know?
Sure.
I mean, for next whatever.
Sure.
It'd be nice to know that.
Mhm.
So at this rate, the 111, if we don't get reappraised for another 5 years, that's what we're gonna pay for
What-
the next 5 years?
No, it will still renew each year. So I will meet with Mr. Hiddle. We update exposures as far as employees, student counts, everything like that. And then they re-rate based on that. So our renewal rates are tending to see about a 2% increase.
Let me go up 2%. Is what it has been.
Okay.
much more in line with what my expectation level was.
And that is low for insurance renewals. And I only say that because the 5 years we were in Liberty, we never saw 2%. It was more around 5 to 6.
However, our district does basically do some self-insurance on their own, so we don't make claims. We haven't made a lot of claims. Actually, I think besides the $6,500 claim to Liberty Mutual and maybe a little medical claim from a fall, there's been no claims. So we're not high users on purpose. We don't turn everything in. We have a higher deductible, that kind of thing.
Any other questions?
Sounds like we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I'm just recommending going ahead and accepting it all now. I don't see any reason to wait. It's tearing the Band-Aid off at this point and correcting it to where apparently it should be. And if we find out later that we can get it adjusted to where I think it should be, we'll deal with it then.
Because we only have until June 30th? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I want to say something though, Jeremy, thank you. You do look out for the best interest. Thank you.
No problem. That's what I do.
You've done what you can,
But-
pretty much.
This one, yeah. He knows, and I know it's not his fault. He
Yeah.
just gets to be the bearer of the bad news, but it was a shock to both of us to see that kind of increase came, so. But it is what it is, and we'll plan accordingly the next go-around.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, the next item that we have on there is the approval of the appropriation adjustments. We do this every year. This allows me to close the books so that we don't have to meet on the eve of June 30th to make that happen. Otherwise, that would be fun. We can do that. The next item on there is temporary appropriations at 50% of FY21. The next item is allowing me to invest district funds for FY22. The next item is to establish the board service fund as we've done in the past. The next item is to establish a pay rate for our teachers who are working over the summer for summer school as well as summer professional development. This rate was determined using the average hourly rate of all of our teachers, and we're paying this using Esser 2 and ARP funds. Item 9 is having you approve the Miami County Educational Service Center salary schedules. We create our own salary schedules for staff that we hire through the ESC, and we do this a lot of times when we're unsure if the position is going to remain in place or not. So this allows us that flexibility. And so this came about as we've settled the memberships agreement for the next 2 years. Then we went ahead and got these salary schedules adopted. And then we have the supplemental salary schedule and position list. And the main changes on here are the athletic trainer due to the extension of the summer season with football and the extra game and everything that's occurring with that next year. It's putting more time and work on her, and we wanted to show her appreciation for that. This position is paid for actually by our partnership with Premier Health, and so they were in agreement to increase that salary by $1,400. And then we added a wellness coordinator position. So we have a district wellness team that we have that we've been meeting regularly, and one of the things that came out of that was having to have some kind of person who was the cheerleader for that group and the person who organized the events. And we found that a teacher does that better than an administrator kind of thing, and so we are looking to be able to hire somebody to help pick up that role and responsibility. I had a great person in line, and then Chip and Tony and Dwayne stole her from me, and that's okay, to coach volleyball, but I'll get over it, and we'll find somebody else who's just as talented, I'm sure. Jennifer Hill's game. I know Steve was like thinking, he's like, yep, oh yeah, that happened. So it's all good. She did an excellent job last year, which is why I was in favor of adding the position, because that, I mean, her commitment to the job was excellent. And Scott Bloom was as well. He was phenomenal, but I can't pay him next year. He's on an administrative contract.
Real quick question on the Esser funds. That doesn't necessarily come out of our pockets. That's
Correct.
That's
That
not
money is part of the, so we're required to spend a large chunk of the money on recovery, and so getting our students caught up. And so that money for the summer school rate and for our professional development is to help do just that, is to improve our students' academic performance, which you'll see as we get into more of the, I'm assuming in our professional, or in our personnel agenda, but as we move forward, you'll see that we are getting into that further and further, so.
I thought that was the case. I just want to make sure.
Okay,
That's a lot.
yep. Thank you.
No problem.
So now I guess we work our way down the list, right?
Well, actually, you only need to do one vote at this point if you really wanted to, because you opened it up, motion and second, and I read everything, so we only really need to do it once.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and do it. Any questions or anything, comments?
Yes, Mr. Ford? Nothing.
He's got that look in his
He
eye.
was giving that
doesn't he?
look like he had a question, so I was
just
like,
curious, because we did open up the motion.
we did, so this is fine, because he
It was
wanted to be able
seconded.
for us to all talk, so it's fine.
No, we don't need to take a second motion, we just need to ask for a vote, right?
That's true, good
Yeah.
point. See?
Yep. We just go on through, so.
All right, Mr. Frazier.
Aye.
Mr. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Height?
Aye.
Mrs. McMacken?
Aye.
Mr. Bostic?
Aye. Okay, thank you, Mr. Height. Okay, heading to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Messick. I can think of nobody better to follow Jeremy than him. He's going to talk a little bit about high school and the progress of what they're working on.
Fired up, right? Fired up.
Well, hello. Finally got the close to the school year. Thanks to Mother Nature, it went 2 days longer than what we intended, but that's just the way the year is going. Getting through graduation, that was a little bit of a challenge, but it all worked out. It was a great event. We're just real excited to get back into some normalcy here. One of the things I really wanted to talk to you guys about is the summer school, our summer school program. And it's pretty much what we're doing is a reflection of what happened last year. So where we are right now, our summer school statistics, I don't have a neat presentation today, guys. I'm just reading off the paper. Right now, we have 167 students that are participating in our summer program. Okay? 39 of those 167 students are students that are working towards credit advancement to either free up next year's schedule or to help earn an honors diploma. So roughly 120 some students that are left over are currently working on credit recovery. So these are 120 students from last year that did not meet the credit requirements needed to be where they should be at this time. Of those 120, 39 students are working towards, 30 students are working on one-on-one with specific teachers to receive additional support in either algebra or with their individual education plans. So these kids, a lot of them were students, special education students working through like our algebra programs or other places. And so they're working with Kim Dyer and Jen Monin to get this stuff done. They're having great success, and I'll kind of go through what exactly they're all doing here in a little bit. We also have 98 students that are working on some, like I said, the rest of them working on credit recovery. Most of them are finishing existing classes that they had enrolled in the online. All right, so we just kept the classes open and continued to work with them. So some of the things, how we came across those kids, specific students were identified by our guidance department, teaching staff, administration, to encourage participation in summer school. Of these kids, like I said, we lost touch with a lot of these kids. Phone calls, emails, or whatever, but that personal touch. We've already gone out to 27 homes. We did personal home visits to try to reach out to these families to get the kids working and just tell them what we have to offer. And we've had some marginal success there with that. We've sent letters, we did direct messaging, we've done everything we can to get them. Right now we've already logged over 200 phone calls since the closing of school. And since graduation, trying to get a hold of people to get them to work. It's been a struggle. We are offering, obviously we have our Odyssey Wear program, kids can work online. We've given them, they've turned in their school computers, and they've been given summer school computers. Like I said, we have teachers that are working directly with them to try to get them to do what's asked them to do. Like I said, it's been a real challenge. It's been a real challenge. Unfortunately, we kind of knew that the kids weren't doing stuff during the school year. It was going to be hard for us to get them done in the summer. So we're trying to, actually we were working on this today. One of the very interesting things that we're finding out when we're doing these home visits is there's nobody awake at 12:30 when we knock on the doors. And kids have pretty much, or the households have gone to this night. That's when they're doing their stuff. We're looking at our data from the Odyssey Wear when things are completed. A lot of times it's 2:30 in the morning, stuff like that. So our next phase, we're going to start offering tutor sessions during the evenings to try to get these kids. I promise you, we are doing everything that we can. We just can't physically go inside the house and grab them and pull them. We also offer an in-person where kids can come in for help sessions. Of those 170 kids, we've had 7 kids come in for those. And this is even us going out and trying to say, we'll come pick you up and bring you in. So we haven't had a lot of success with that, so that's why we're trying to work to see if we can get something going with the evening. Now, that was all gloom and doom. We have, in 3 weeks, we've already had 9 students complete their summer courses and get all their credits back. So that's only like within 2 weeks we've been able to get them there. And like I said, our teachers are meeting and scheduling times, doing a lot of Google meetings with them to get them. So we're available, we're able to work with them, and it's the same thing I've told you guys all along. If I can put one of my staff in front of these kids, we're going to get them where they need to be. It's trying to figure out a way to get that to happen. It's been the biggest challenge. And like I said, we're turning over every stone that we possibly can to do that. Which obviously brings in a huge issue if we do not get these kids completed next year. And so there's been some additional staff that's been hired to be able to take on those challenges, some different programs, as we mentioned, as I had mentioned before. One thing that we really want to make sure that we do is really try not to overload those basic or those core classes. With all of these kids coming back. Like I said, we have maybe 100 kids that have to do an extra math credit. And we're trying not to overload those classes. So we've hired, well, you're going to meet Danielle here in a little bit. We've hired another math teachers just so that we can keep those numbers down. We feel like if we can keep those numbers in those core classes down under 20, it really gives us an opportunity to do a lot of small group. On the other hand, some of the more advanced classes are a little bit heavier in their numbers than what they traditionally are. But that's kind of what we had to decide to do as a building to make it work. Like I said, we got a challenge, but my staff is definitely up to it, and we're going to make sure that we get that stuff done. So it's going to be a good year. It's gonna be great.
Rob, how many were there that we just totally didn't have a clue on, that disappeared?
We had about 23 students that we literally lost, and that's even sending the courts to go find them, the police to go find everything.
Yeah.
We knew they were still in the Piqua area. We just couldn't find them. They weren't living in their own homes, that kind of stuff. So we have really, our big goal, and thanks to you guys, is we're getting the kids back in person. We want them back in person. We did the best that we possibly could. But we know that what we are giving them isn't as good as being in the building. And so we have really restricted how you can go online, as of right now, unless they come out and give us some type of other order. But if it didn't work, you're not going back. Conversation yesterday, well, my kid wants to be online. Oh, well, it didn't work. They received only 1 credit. They only logged in so many hours. Their attendance was horrible. They're a year behind. We're not going to do that. Well, that's what I want. Well, there's other programs out there that aren't affiliated with Piqua schools. I can't sell that anymore. We have to do what's right by our kids. And so those are the conversations we're having. Fortunately, we get them to agree, and they're like, yeah, we need to get them back in school. So it's been a struggle, but we're going to, like I said, we're going to get them there.
Well, thank you and your staff and everybody. That is amazing. I mean, it's not easy at all.
No, it's not, but, we're not the only school that's going to be going through it and doing these things. Yeah. And so, and I'm just taking from the high school perspective. We were at, this year, we had 54% of our 54% of our students were considered chronically truant, and that's a lot of days. That's a lot of missed instruction, and that's and we don't know the impact of that yet. We really don't. We have like I said, we know the kids that did everything, came to school, did all that stuff. That we feel like we've done the job with them, but 54% of them lost a lot of instruction, and so we got to wait to see what that happens. You know, one other thing that really, now I'm just talking.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble. No, I'm
So
kidding.
we keep on going. There's nobody else put me on a timer right now, is there? But one of, the big things is like, it's amazing, and I guess you knew it, but I really saw it this year. What brings the kids to school it's the sports, it's the clubs, it's those little activities, and it's not records or whatever, it's not that, it's just being with their friends. That's what drove them there, being there for show choir. I'll never forget when we did the show choir when all of them were quarantined. The school just deflated. It just felt like that whole presence of that group was gone. And so it was one of those things where, just really, it's like, wow, we got to make sure that we get this stuff back. And, Mr. Thompson and I have talked it's a reopening. And we just have to do everything we can just to make those first couple days, those first couple months, we want you back, we're welcome back, getting the kids involved, doing things, getting the community back, with us. I think it's extremely, extremely important. Seeing that first football game and getting everybody there, because that's a major event in Piqua, and seeing the band out there and the football team play. So, anyway, all right, questions. I'm just talking.
So out of that number, that 167, were most of those students online learners?
Yes,
All
most
of them?
Not all of them. Okay, because like I said, we did have 54%. Some kids that missed a lot of days. A lot of them were kids most of them are full-time online. The other portion, a lot of kids. Remember in the semester, we called them up, said you need to get them back in school. This isn't working. So they were a semester behind. So now they're still kind of still one semester. We have until August 20th to keep going. And like I said, it's not from lack of contact and trying. We can get them through every day. A small little celebration. Yay, we got this one through algebra. Or, this one through English 9. So we'll get them there.
So that number, they're enrolled in summer school, but not necessarily because they wanted to be?
Well, we can't forcefully kind of enroll them.
But
We
they
strongly
willingly
suggest.
signed up for
Yeah,
summer
they're signed
school?
up.
These 167?
Yeah, they're signed up and ready
But
to
they're
roll.
still not doing the work?
Yeah, it's not at the speed that we want them to. There's, like I said, I don't discredit. There's some kids that are getting it done. Don't get me wrong, but there is a group that they didn't do it before, and now we're trying to get them to do it again in the summer. So, like I said, that's our big challenge. It really is. And like I said, we do everything we can to try to get them to do it.
One of Rob's mantras has always been, get kids to school and we'll get them to graduate. And it couldn't be truer. And when the governor's orders came out and we had to offer the remote learning because of COVID, and we saw some kids sign up that we already knew were at risk, we were concerned, but there wasn't anything we could do about it. So when those kids went to remote learning, we went into overdrive on trying to get them to do the work and keep it going, and they just struggled. And without that support and without getting them in front of our teachers, it was even worse. So like he said, at the end of the semester, we literally called people over and over and said, this isn't working, get your kid back in. We couldn't force it because COVID was there and we couldn't make that happen. So some people said, okay, I'm gonna get my kid back into school. It happened from semester all the way to the end of the year. We had people joining us last month of school that parents finally saw what was happening, but yeah, it's going to be a challenge. And like he said, if they're credit deficient, their freshman and sophomore years, many times statistics will say that they won't graduate. So getting those kids caught up and getting them back on track, just so we can get that graduation rate where it needs to be, is going to be really important. But catching them up in general, I mean, you can't not have algebra and go on to the next course. You can't not pass your freshman year and go on to your sophomore language arts. So it's a lot of work, and it's going to be 3, 4, 5 years to get that really back on track for these kids as they're working through their high school years, if they're behind.
I assume a lot of those kids are the ones that don't have a club or an extracurricular that brings them to school. They're just
Some,
just ones
but,
that
but we did tell the kids, if you did remote, you could still participate in the clubs because we didn't want to miss that opportunity for that social. So we did have some kids that still did that, but mostly, yeah.
Yeah, and that's, it's extremely important that we get that connection, Very few kids come to school because they want to take geometry. They want to come to school because they want to be in that environment, and then they're going to pick up geometry while they're there. I know that sounds bad to say as an educator, but that's the way it is. So yeah, those things are extremely important. Obviously, our district makes a huge investment in that, so that's
But
we're on
also,
target.
I think it motivates them too, because you have to have certain grades and you have to pass your classes to stay in those programs. So when you're in them and you value them, and we've got excellent staff and coaches in those positions, kids will work for them and do what they can. So if you're not participating, you don't have that same motivation. But we are anxious to bring them back, and we are working on some great ideas to get the community back engaged with us. And we're tired of telling people no, or you can't, or you can have this much. We're tired of all that. We're really looking forward to a really great comeback.
All right, anything else?
No.
Come on, Sean, you need something?
No, you've talked long enough already.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Rob.
I'm going to go ahead and let Teresa go next because she's going to talk about the elementary summer school, and then I'll move over to Tony's topic here. Tony's going to talk a long time too.
Okay, get the timer ready.
For me?
No,
Oh, I was going to say,
Yes.
trust me, it won't be that long. So our summer learning programs at the elementary level kicked off on June 14th, and ours have a slightly different flavor to them than the high school. We opened ours up to all students. Anybody who wanted to come could come to summer school. So we had some parents choose to send their children so they could continue to enrich them all summer long. We had some parents choose to send their children because they still had some anxieties about what was the impact of last spring and not coming to school all year, and still trying to make sure that their children are where they need to be, because that as parents is a concern to them, that they did that remote and perhaps lost some valuable learning time, and they wanted to give opportunities to make it up. And we also have students who were behind, and this is an opportunity to catch up. And we also have some parents who did remote learning last year, all year long, and see summer learning as an opportunity to transition their students back into the buildings and get back into that routine of being in groups again and being in the school setting. So lots of different reasons for the students being there, but we're seeing lots of exciting stuff happening. So K-6, at this point in time, we have 218 students attending summer school, which is a much larger number than we've ever had in my 20 plus years here.
That's K through 6, you said?
K through 6, yes. So we have currently kindergarten through third grade. Their program is set up as a 7-week program. They started June 14th, and they'll go through August 5th. We are taking the week of July 5th off, just as a little break in the middle. Lots of families take vacations then, so we thought that would be a good time just to take a little break between those 7 weeks. They are attending 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, from 9 a.m. to 11:15. The students are receiving small group instruction, and that was very important to us. We didn't want to have rooms of 25 students in there. All of our students are participating in small group instruction, no more than 6, 7, 8 kids in a group at a time. So it's pretty intensive instruction. So they're getting 45 minutes of math instruction, 45 minutes of reading instruction, and then 45 minutes of what we're calling social or themed instruction. So they're working on things like cooperative learning, some fun experiments, some exploration of things, vocabulary development, background knowledge development, and social emotional kinds of things too. That whole social emotional mental health piece is coming into those activities as well. We currently have 30 staff members working at the K3 level, with some subs and some other people substituting in there at times. Kindergarten, we have 39 students attending. First grade, we have 54 students attending. Second grade, 40, and third grade, 30. So good numbers of students at each grade level. Grades 4 through 6, we developed a 6-week program for them. Started June 7th and ends this Thursday. Then they're taking the month of July off and then coming back and going 3 weeks in August. So kind of a end of school year, catch up some things that we might be missing, come back in August and give them a little reboot and make sure they're caught up and ready to go when the doors open in September. Again, same kind of structure, 4 days a week in the mornings, 9 to 11:15. Also in small group instruction, 45-minute sessions, same type of format. We have 61 students registered to attend at the intermediate level. One of the key components to this program is that we are providing transportation, and that's something that was a challenge to figure out, but also, I think, contributing to the fact that we have such large numbers because the kids are able to get there. We are currently running 3 buses this summer, so if you see yellow school buses out and around on town, that's why, because they're running our elementary summer routes. We also, using our Esser Funds, we were able to develop a supervisor position for this. So we have a teacher that's getting a stipend to be the supervisor. Jackie Thace is acting as the supervisor for the elementary programs. So she's there every day to help with all of the details that need to be paid attention to during the summer school sessions. All the transportation, the phone communications, the parent questions, the attendance every day, helping get resources, planning incentives, all those things. So we're happy to have those Esser funds to be able to do that as well. So excited about that. All of our programs are housed at Piqua Central Intermediate, and because of the transportation, it just made it easier to have one central location to be able to bring all the students there instead of trying to route students to 3 different locations. So we have invaded Piqua Central Intermediate School for the summer, and it's in full gear there. Lots of great things happening. So, any questions?
No, but that's encouraging to hear that there is such a good turnout,
Yes,
especially kids that didn't necessarily need to go. So.
yes, and like I said, it's the first couple days there. It was like, wow, there's a full school here. I mean, there was lots of kids. So that's very different than we had in the past for our summer programs. I mean, we have other summer programs running as well. We still have our summer reading program that we do every year. We've got the Bookmobile running. In the last week of July, we'll have Careful Corners for our incoming kindergartners. In August, 3 weeks in August, we typically do a pre-K program for those kids who are coming to kindergarten and may not have had a preschool experience. We offer a session. We don't have all the details worked out on that, but that'll be in August. And Mrs. Todd has also planned a August reboot for some students with special needs to give them a boost before school starts. So the whole month of August, we have organized special education teachers to be working with our special ed students at the elementary level and high school level to give them a little jump start into the next school year too. So lots of things happening this summer.
Thanks.
We just really feel like we have a lot of work ahead of us to get our kids, back on track with all the disruptions and tons and tons of phone calls. I mean, from central office to principals to teachers calling parents and saying we need your kid to come and join us. So I really appreciate the parents that have reciprocated that and allowed their kids to come to these programs because we need it. We do. They need it. So.
Well, those are good things too, to share that, we're being proactive in getting the kids back and getting them caught up for all of this, so the community knows that we've really got the kids' best interested.
It's a big deal, and we don't yet know really the impact of everything that's happened. And even though I'm real proud that we've opened on time and we didn't close once because of COVID last year, but we had tons of interruptions with required quarantines. We had, like my kids were quarantined. They never had it, but they were close. So CDC guidelines said this had to happen. We had kids that were sick. We had staff that was sick, staff that had to quarantine. So there were just tons of interruptions in addition to the number of kids that went to remote learning and then came back. And the governor shut all schools down last March of 20. There's a lot to all that. We'll never know the impact until we really get everything back going. We're working on curriculum maps now and looking at what gaps could be there and trying to figure out how we can piece all this together and fill in all that time. But it's going to take a few years to really get back where we
We
need
got
to be.
K
So,
through 6 in high school. What are we doing for the 7th and 8th grade this summer?
same, yeah,
7th and 8th grade's linked with us.
yeah, yeah. We haven't left them out. So, but I do appreciate just so much work that has gone into this, and again, the parents that have answered the call and said yes, we'll do this. That's a great partnership with us, and they realize that, and we appreciate that. So there's good stuff happening. So with that, Matt, I wanted to say you don't have to stay if you don't want to. You're welcome to, but you're done. So don't want to kick you out, but you're welcome to go.
You look him up.
Yeah. We give a bowling report twice a year. We do it in December and in June, and Tony tracks that information and works with principals on that, so he's going to give an update on our numbers.
As you can imagine, if you bring a couple hundred kids back that haven't been together after the semester, you're going to get more reports. The good news is it didn't result in more incidents that were determined to be bullying. So for the time period from January to May, Spring Creek Primary had 3 reports. Washington Primary had 1 report. Piqua Central had 61 reports. Piqua Junior High, 20 reports, and Piqua High School, 13. All 4 that were determined to be bullying were at Piqua Central Intermediate School, which is, again, we bring all those kids from both schools together, and that's traditionally where we see those incidents occurring. So a couple thoughts on that. When you hear that number, our kids use that system to report incidents. So if a kiddo says, "You're stupid," at the intermediate, those kids can get in there and send that message to the principal. It actually is a good thing with that volume because it allows the principals to get in front of that situation before it gets worse. So the reporting is actually encouraging because our principals have spent a lot of time trying to get the kids to get into the system. These are the low numbers of reporting a lot of times in the system are from K-3 levels because the kids don't access that website. Parents will enter that information, if that makes sense, or we'll get phone calls. And once we get the phone call, we encourage the parent to go into the system after we've dealt with that. So at any rate, I think looking at compared 61 at the intermediate to last year, I think it's about a 20 increase, which again, not surprising when you start putting all those kids that weren't together the whole first semester, where you spend that time with them, coaching them through the principals and the teachers, making sure they understand how to work together and communicate, and then suddenly they're back together. So that, I think, was a challenging piece. One of the other things I noticed was multiple kids reporting on the same incident this time, which was amazing. So we had 5 kids report an actual bullying situation, the same one. So it was, and it didn't appear that they were together on it. And that's the first time I've seen that piece happen. So that was, I thought, great for our students that they're seeing those things happen and reacting to them appropriately. So again, there is that very specific definition that has to meet for bullying, but we still get a response to those kids if they're not anonymous. In most cases, we can't figure them out if they're anonymous. But outside of that, the system alerts both of us too when we have an actual bullying, when they plug it in as bullying, and we're able to follow up with the principals to make sure that that's being, those kids are being cared for, both of them, or all of them. So, any questions on the bullying report?
A great feature of this program is if there's any danger, if a kid says, somebody's going to really hurt them or do something, the people monitoring that 24/7 will call us no matter what time of the day it is. We've gotten calls at 2, 3, 4 in the morning where somebody has reported something that they'll say, we're concerned about this.
And they keep going through until they get one
Yeah,
of us.
they'll
so,
call
yeah.
until one of us answer. And we always get one, two that's not a bullying report. Like we got one in December when we were on Christmas break. A student got onto the bullying report and said, I need help. They were being abused. There was an abuse situation. They didn't know what to do. They were stuck at home. They weren't able to come to school because they were on that break. And it came through like about 2 or 3 in the morning. I got the phone call, immediately called the police. They went to the house. Everything was addressed right away. It was taken care of. And the child got help. So they used it to their advantage. It wasn't bullying, but it was a really good thought on their part to go in there and make that note. So
Just a reminder that all those reporting systems are on the front page of our homepage, the student safety reporting and the bullying reporting, and information about bullying on their top left corner. So, thank you.
Is that it for your?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Hey, before we get to the agenda, I'll put the motion out there so we can discuss it, just go through
Sure.
it. Okay, we're ready to go superintendent's agenda, and I thought what we do is we'll get a motion here, and that way we can discuss any of these and then vote at the end, and won't have to go for another motion. So, a motion for the superintendent's agenda?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay. All right, Mr. Thompson?
First, we'll start with recommendation to approve the list of donations and grants to the Piqua City School District. We received some donations and grants from the Miami Valley Church, the Miami County Foundation, and the Piqua Community Foundation for some projects. Our teachers do a great job of writing those grants and seeking those funds for special things for our district and students. Next is to recommend the board approval for the attached student handbooks for the 21-22 school year. We subscribe to Neola, which is part of all of our board updates and policies, and one of the things they do every year is they give us a really good rundown of everything that needs to be included in the student handbooks, what must be communicated to parents, any updates in terms of any laws that come out on anything from bullying to dress codes to you name it. So we take that information, principals work on getting those updated. They try to be consistent between buildings, and there's a good sequence and a flow of how things would progress through the district. So they work really hard on that during the last month of May here, coming into this board meeting. And then recommend board approval of the attached list of library books of Washington Primary School for disposal and removal from the inventory of Piqua City School District. Just old books that have worn out and aren't really good to lease out to students anymore. That's it.
But when you get rid of the books, do you offer them to kids to take, or how do you do that?
Sometimes you do. What happens inevitably when you do that is because they're stamped and they've got everything, if a kid loses it or puts it somewhere, it comes back to us because people think it comes to us, and you can put discarded and all kinds of things to it. But sometimes we do that. But some of these books are just they're just old. They've just been in the district for a long time too. So
Wonder how long the average book lasts. That'd be
I think
interesting.
it depends probably on the book.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, that's true. You never know.
This was probably a lot of the science books we cleaned out the second floor too, I'm assuming.
These are the I think from the library.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
some nonfiction
Circulation.
books in there that have been worn pretty heavily, and then there's some fiction books in there that have just been loved to death and are wrinkled, crinkled, bent, worn, and just not in position to be used anymore. If there are any in there that were maybe withdrawn because of lack of circulation, I will go through them. I believe it's something that somebody might be interested in. I'll take them and put them in the book.
That's good. Well, any other questions, comments? Mr. Hiddle, can we just do a roll call for this since Mr. Thompson listed one now?
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Height,
Aye.
Mr. Ford,
Aye.
Mrs. McMacken,
Aye.
Mr. Frazier,
Aye.
Mr. Bostic.
Aye. Okay, now we have Mr. Lyons back with personnel
Good
agenda.
to be back. Good to be back. As you can see, that first section there, there's a few resignations and then several new hires. There are some internal transfers in there as well, and some that have been teaching from the ESC as an employee and then moving into our Piqua positions, which is always nice as well. We do have two people here that we're going to introduce tonight, and I know Rob is eager to introduce Danielle, and then we'll let her take the mic for a few words as well.
Am I back up?
Sure.
We had a resignation of a math teacher. She decided to move down to Cincinnati. So we started our process of interviewing, and it was very evident that we wanted Danielle really bad after the first interview. Actually, she doesn't know this, but we didn't even, it happened really quick. So it was a great interview. She talked just her experiences and how she taught, and she talked about the way that she likes to do small group instruction, all that, which plays right into what Pick was doing. So got off the phone, as soon as she left, got on the phone with Tony and said, yeah, this is what we want. And so we always pass it off to Tony and say, you got to make the final sale, and apparently he did. So Danielle, why don't you come up here and introduce yourself?
We were lucky that I had some contacts that I have confidence in, and when I call and they say, please don't take her from us, that's generally a good sign, and then you apologize and say, well, but we will. So
Danielle, please don't take over 40 minutes.
I will. I promise. I'll be quick. Well, thank you so much for having me here and hiring me. I really appreciate it. What's my 6th year now? I'm coming from Northridge High School, so been teaching there for 5 years. I'm ready for something a little new, so I'm really excited to get started.
And you have a guest with you?
Oh yeah, this is my fiance, Tyler Barton. We'll be married August 7th. It's kind of moving quickly, but
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Good to have you on board.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Lyons?
And we are going to introduce Eric Hughes this evening. Eric will be the new principal at Washington Primary School. Eric went through a pretty significant process to get to this point with a lot of different people, some who are here, and were able to participate. We were fortunate, as you saw in the email, that a lot of our teachers who were interested, in fact, all of them who showed interest, were able to participate in the process. And after 3 rounds and having some discussion with Eric, and he comes to us from some unique experiences as a high school assistant principal and several years as a K through 6 principal as well, and a K-6 teacher. I think everything but maybe second. So,
everything but first and 6th.
So I couldn't have been more wrong.
Basically everything but first. And
So we're happy to
7th,
have
8th.
him.
Yes.
Eric Hughes.
Yeah. So thank you. I'm very excited and definitely looking forward to this opportunity. So I want to thank everybody for this. So my background, I was an elementary teacher, student taught kindergarten, 3rd grade, taught 2nd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade in Kentucky, and then moved up here when I got a job at Franklin Monroe. I was a K-6 principal for 4 years there, and then decided I was ready for a little bit of a change and moved to high school. So I went to Northmont High School, was an assistant principal there. So went from about 350 kids to about 1,400, and kids this size to this size. So it was definitely a big change, but it was a very good learning experience, and I'm ready to get back into the primary. So definitely excited. The good thing is there were some familiar faces when we partnered with a grant several years ago that, I knew Miss Anderson and some other people here, which kind of always makes that transition a little bit nicer. So thank you. I appreciate it and looking forward to it.
Thanks, Eric.
Well, Eric.
So with, just like Danielle, when you start making those calls that are not the people that he listed necessarily, but you know them and they're confidants, and they're saying, again, please don't take him, but also when people are reaching out to you and saying, hey, you have this position open, you really need to give this candidate a shot, that's pretty powerful. So we had all of those things with these candidates tonight. So really, really excited to have them on board. And outside of that, unless you have questions on personnel agenda, that's all I have.
I noticed you were a little less nervous tonight.
Well, I got nervous to begin with when there's a microphone there.
You did fine.
Yeah, and I did apologize. My wife normally comes with me, and I wanted her to, but my son's got a game going on right now, so she and my son and daughter are at the park.
It's the right decision.
Yes. Yep, very good. Well, okay, now motion for, to approve the personnel agenda vote.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the personnel agenda vote, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign? Okay. Measure passes. New business.
We're going to recommend the board approval of a substitution of the emergency levy. The emergency levy that is currently in place was initially approved in 2003, and it was an emergency at that time. The funding was desperately needed to maintain the budget. It was again approved in 2008, 2013, and 2017, all with zero increases of revenue to the district. The community was graciously approving those as they understood the need for that money. We've never changed the emergency levy because any change to it or the language would have required us to get rid of the rollback and exemptions that were in place for all of our homeowners and our seniors. And that was important for us not to do that to those people that have supported that for all this time. So every time that levy comes up, people say, why is it an emergency levy? Are you in an emergency? And we're not, but we're not because we've got those funds in our budget. If they left, obviously we would be back into an emergency situation. But this allows us, this new opportunity allows us to be able to substitute that emergency levy and just make it into an ongoing levy that would help us maintain those dollars in our budget without calling it an emergency. And again, it doesn't change the homeowners or the seniors' rollback or exemptions. We're nearing 15 years now of asking for no increases in our operating funds, and that's a pretty good tribute to the work that I think we've done. Despite the increases in the salaries to meet the cost of living and to keep our district competitive, as well as attracting new staff to hire. We've also had increases in utilities and maintaining our bus fleet and other expenses, but we've done a lot of work through attrition of staff. We've done our insurance work in terms of our wellness programs for health insurance. We do requests for proposals for all of our contracts at least 3 to 5 years, and we always get them to come down as much as we can. The grants we write, the energy savings projects that we did with Honeywell, we always share services through the Educational Service Center, and of course our partnership with Premier Health has really been a great way for us to not have to come back to the taxpayers. We're committed to continue that work because it's huge. It's a great savings. It's a great way for us to stay in the black, which we've done for 15 years, I think now. We did get the Esser Funds, and we are really working. We are working really hard to stretch those as much as we can to get the benefit of those to help overcome all the costs and expenses that COVID has put onto us, such as all the cleaning expenses that we had to do, everything from buying masks to plastic barriers and all those kinds of things, but also overcoming the learning deficits with our summer school programs that you've heard about. All the extra learning programs that we're going to do for students over the next 3 to 5 years to try to get back on track is going to stem from using those dollars. So we're really going to use those to our advantage, which again will keep us in a really good situation, not having to increase this at all. So I can't stress enough that we're not asking for more money. We're not asking for an increase in revenue. We're asking to maintain just what we've had in our budget for the last 15 years that we've had this in place. It would change the name of it. It's important for us to maintain this, also to just protect the academic quality that we have. Again, we indicated that we've got a lot of work ahead of us in terms of catching the kids up. We were shut down last March. We lost all that time, and we lost all the instruction due to all the interruptions that we had with the CDC. So we can't afford to take a cut right now. This amount of money would really fund up to 35 teachers and their benefits. It would also fund a whole year of transportation and utility costs. So those are just a couple of examples of why that money is really important to our budget. So losing that $2.1 million would be very detrimental to us. So again, not asking for an increase. We're just asking to replace it, get rid of the emergency part. It does not, again, take away from the exemptions and the rollbacks from the homeowners or the seniors. So any questions that we can answer for you at this time?
I don't think there's a question. I think we need to just do a really good job of educating the public of why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And putting those points out that, we're keeping everything in place.
Correct.
And they won't see, every 5 years, they won't see us coming back.
Correct.
With a levy again. And I think it takes a burden off taxpayers to see that.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting sell, but I think it's important we do.
Yeah. And this is just the first step to it. if you approve, we'll go right into developing a campaign and making sure people understand all that and getting all that together and answering the questions.
It's gonna be pretty quick. I mean, this is November, right?
It'll be November.
Okay.
Yep.
So it'll be a pretty quick turnaround where you'll probably start seeing stuff in August or September.
Usually, yep. We'll have to go back and look at like when mailing votes and all those things. We want to make sure we get everything out so everybody has all the information they can to make an informed vote. Yeah.
Any questions, comments? Okay, Mr. Hiddle, you want to roll call this one? Or- Yeah, yeah, I know, but
Yes,
we'll roll
please.
call, so. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Mr. Hiddle?
Mr. Frazier.
Aye.
Mrs. McMacken.
Aye.
Mr. Ford. Mr. Height.
Aye.
Mr. Bostic.
Aye. Okay, hearing of the public on non-agenda items, I don't have anything there, so we're ready for a motion for adjournment. Our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, July 20th at 6 PM here at the board office. So entertaining motion and second, please.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.